Hi boys and girls, I'm Rabab Hamoud, and in this video we are going to finish up reported speech. But before we get started, please watch the first part of the lesson in order to refresh your memory about the changes that take place to the verb tenses, modals, and time expressions when reporting speech. You really must know them like the back of your hand. First, we're going to go over the general rule. Whenever we're reporting questions, the questions are no longer questions. And we do not use the auxiliaries do, does, and did when we are reporting, and we do not use question marks. However, the word order is the same as in statements, and the tenses change according to the rules. Let's begin with yes or no questions. The form for them is to begin with ask or wonder or any other reporting verbs, and use if or whether plus the subject plus the verb. Let's check out the example. She asked, "Do you speak Spanish?" Usually we give you this part on the test when you're going to rewrite sentences starting as indicated. So she wondered if I spoke Spanish. So since this question is a yes or no question, then we'll either use if or whether. So here we used if, but we don't use the auxiliary do anymore. And from the auxiliary do, we know that the verb is in the simple present. Speak doesn't really help us because it is in the base form. So we changed the simple present to the simple past. So the sentence reads, she wondered if I spoke Spanish. You have your if, you have your subject, and you have your verb. Here's another example. The teacher said to the boys, have you done your homework? When we report it, we use if because it's a yes or no question. And we went from have done, which is the present perfect, to had done, which is the past perfect. Of course, we changed the pronouns as well, from your to their. So now the sentence reads, the teacher wondered if the boys had done their homework. Now we're moving on to WH questions. Usually WH questions begin with words that contain WH in them, like when, why, where. Even how is a WH question because it contains the letters W and H, although they're not in order. Anywho, so now the form is to use the WH question, the subject, and the verb, because remember, it's not a question anymore. When it's a question, you invert the subject and the verb. But here we have to kind of undo it. So the first example is, she asked me, where do you live? Well, we keep the WH question. We go from do live, which is the simple present, to change the main verb live to the past. And the pronoun you becomes I. She wanted to know where I lived. So notice, it is not a question anymore. We got rid of the question mark and, of course, the quotation marks. And here's another example. Mother asked, what is the matter? Mother wondered what the matter was. Okay, let's move on. Now, the final thing that we need to know is how to report commands. Now, commands, requests, advice, warnings, or suggestions are all kind of phrased the same way. So I'll just focus on the word commands. When someone gives you a command, they tell you to do something. For example, they tell you, return to your seats. Okay, so that's a command. How do I report it? Well, I'll use a reporting verb, which is usually given to you. I'll use an object, and I use the infinitive. What is the infinitive? It's to plus the base form of the verb. So to make it really simple for you, you would say, for example, go or come. So she told me to go, or she told me to come, or write. She told me to write. So here we go. Mr. Mason said, return to your seats. And then you would ask your friend, what did Mr. Mason say? And then your friend would say, Mr. Mason told us to return to our seats. So it's fairly easy. You just add to the base form of the verb. Now when it's negative, as in this case, don't talk so fast, he said. You would put not in front of to in the base form. I always tell my students, in order to make an infinitive negative, add not in front of it. And I always tell them, it's like what Shakespeare said, to be or not to be, in order to remember the position of not. So now it's your turn. I would like you to pause the video and copy these sentences and rewrite them starting as indicated. And then when you finish, you move on to the next page where the answer key is. And I hope that you did a fantastic job.